Mr. Thaddeus Drybeck, stepping from the neat gravel drive leading from his house onto the road, found his further progress challenged and indeed impeded by the sudden onrush of several Pekingese dogs, who bounced and barked asthmatically about his feet. Repressing a desire to sweep them from his path with the tennis racket he was carrying, he used this instead to guard his ankles, for one of Mrs. Midgholm's Peaks was known to bite. "Shoo!" said Mr. Drybeck testily. "Get away!" The Peaks, maddened to frenzy by this form of address, bounced and barked more than ever, and one of them made a dart at Mr. Drybeck's racket. "Peekies! Peekies!" trilled a new voice in loving reproach. "Naughty! Come to mother at once. It's only their play, Mr. Drybeck." Three of the Peaks, feeling that the possibilities of the situation had been exhausted, abandoned their prey. The fourth, standing foursquare before Mr. Drybeck, continued to bark and growl at him until snatched up into the arms of her owner, who dealt her a fond slap and said, "Isn't she a pet? This is mother's eldest little girl, aren't you, my treasure? Now say you're sorry to poor Mr. Drybeck." Mr. Drybeck, perceiving that the animal was being thrust towards him, recoiled. "Oh, you've hurt her feelings," said Mrs. Midgholm, kissing the top of the Peak's head. "Wouldn't he shake hands with you, Ursula? Never mind." The expression in Ursula's indignantly bulging eyes appeared to be one of loathing rather than of hurt, but this reflection Mr. Drybeck kept to himself, merely saying in his precise way, "I fear I am not fond of dogs." "I'm sure you are, really," said Mrs. Midgholm, unwilling to think ill of a fellow creature. Her eyes, which from their slight protuberance bore a slight resemblance to those of her dog's, ran over him appraisingly. "I expect you're off to the Haswells," she said sapiently. "You're a great tennis player, aren't you?" Mr. Drybeck disclaimed, but felt the description to be just. In his youth he had spent his every summer holiday competing in tournaments, and to his frequent success the row of trophies upon the mantel-shelf in his dining-room bore testimony. His style of play was old-fashioned, like everything else about him, but the young men who considered him a desiccated exponent of pat-ball nevertheless found him a difficult adversary to beat. He was by profession a solicitor, the last surviving member of a firm long established in the neighbouring town of Bellingham. He had never married, was extremely precise in all his ways, and disliked nearly every form of modern progress, a circumstance which possibly accounted for the sadly diminishing numbers of his clients. The older members of the community amongst which he had lived all his life remained faithful to him, but the younger men seemed to prefer the methods employed by his rival and bête noire, Mr. Sampson Warrenby, an upstart of no more than 15 years' standing in the district. Sampson Warrenby's rapidly expanding business, at first a small thorn in Mr. Drybeck's flesh, was fast assuming the proportions of a menace, and since the day, just after the war ended, when he had had the bad taste to move his private residence from Bellingham to the hitherto select village of Thorndon, it had become impossible for the indignant Mr. Drybeck to continue to be socially unaware of his existence. He had bought a house in the lane which debouched onto the main Bellingham road at a point almost opposite Mr. Drybeck's small but ancestral home. "Alas, my tennis days are over," proclaimed Mrs. Midgholm. "But you'll meet my lion." Mr. Drybeck was unalarmed. Major Midgholm, who had been given the name of Lionel by optimistic parents, was a shy man of retiring habits, quite cast into the shade by his kind-hearted but somewhat overpowering wife. "I'll walk with you as far as the corner," pursued Mrs. Midgholm, tucking Ursula under her arm, "unless you mean to go by way of the lane." The lane, which served the little house rented by Mrs. Patterdale at the corner, and farther down and facing the common Mr. Warrenby's residence, led by way of a stile to the footpath which flanked the Haswells' large garden, and ran on beside the squire's eastern plantations to join the northern and secondary road to Bellingham. There was a gate at the bottom of the Haswells' garden, but although this would certainly have been Mr. Drybeck's shortest route, he would have thought it very improper to have presented himself at the house by way of a private back gate. So he politely fell into step beside Mrs. Midgholm, and accompanied her down the road to where the main village street intersected it,